Welcome to Sales Tax and More, your go-to resource for all things state tax related. Now, here is your host, Michael Fleming.
Hi, Mike Fleming here, founder of Sales Tax and More, and today's co-host of the Sales Tax and More podcast, where we talk about everyone's favorite topic, which is, of course, sales tax. Today, my co-host, Ellie Moffitt, is going to be interviewing me about sales tax research. Very exciting topic. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to Ellie.
Hey everyone, great to be here, Mike. I'm excited to talk about sales tax research today. And before we do, quick introduction for Sales Tax and More. So Sales Tax and More is a full-service consulting and solutions firm. We have a really great team here of experienced tax professionals who are very dedicated to fulfilling your state tax and related needs. So we do a lot of sales tax returns, tax registration, sales tax audits, consulting, research, and like our name states, more. So if you have questions about our services, please reach out and ask. We will give you plenty of ways to reach out to us in this episode and in the show notes as well. So, Mike, we joke about the most common answer regarding sales tax issues being it depends. We say it all the time in everything we do. However, when it comes to taxability, with each state's having its own rules as to what is taxable and what's not, I can't think of a more perfect answer. Now, people can hire firms like ours to do research, obviously. It was in our name description that I just gave there, but do you have any advice for those who want to do their own research?
Yeah, absolutely, Ellie. But before we get into it, I just want to give you a little bit of a hard time. You're always giving me a hard time about it depends, but truly when it comes
it's a firm-wide joke. Exciting group here.
But truly, when we talk about research, I mean, it gets so granular and it depends on the facts. And just small things can actually change it. And of course, it's different from state to state. So I've got a list of do's and don'ts. Let's go ahead and start with some don'ts. So, first, a big one, a 10,000-foot overview. When you're doing your research, if you're, going through a state website, if you're using Google, whenever you find what you're looking for, my biggest bit of advice is don't try to stretch it to fit what you want it to say, because states, are not going to look at it that way. They're not going to say, okay, well, you're allowed to stretch this. It is or it isn't generally. There are gray areas, but if you come into a gray area, don't stretch whatever you're reading to try to fit your perfect scenario. Because invariably, state's going, if you get audited at some point down the road, state's going to take an adverse position, and now money that could have been coming out of your customer's pocket, now all of a sudden it's coming out of your pocket with the added insult of penalty and interest because you stretched something in the beginning. So very important when we're doing sales tax planning, which is what you're doing when you're looking up research for the most part, we want to take a conservative approach. Now, if we're doing sales tax research to defend ourselves in an audit, or if we're doing it to try to mitigate some past exposure before we pay money out in a VDA, yeah, then we can stretch a little bit. Let's go ahead and see what we can, how far we can stretch. We've got nothing to lose. Otherwise, we're going to be paying money on that. But when we're doing the planning, it's better to err on the conservative side. So that's where I want to start. Now, let's talk about what a lot of people do. A lot of people just pick up the phone and call the state. And, unfortunately, some states have, good people answering the phone. Some people not very helpful at all answering the phone. Sometimes you can call a state 3 times in a row and get 3 different answers to the same question. I'll call it 10 times in a row. You get 10 different answers to the question. So we don't want to just call the state and take the state's word for it, because we may be getting a wrong answer, even though it's coming from the state. And if you get audited at some point in the future, the auditor is going to say, well, it's great that you called the state, but did you get it in writing? Because verbal guidance, I mean, a lot of states have it right on their hold system that, verbal guidance is not binding upon the state. So, we're going to talk about what to do, but if you do call a state, what we generally do, we call states sometimes too, but it's after we've already formed our opinion. And then we want to check if our opinion is correct. So we've used other sources to get to our opinion. Now we want to call the state and see if it makes sense. And it's usually not the first person that answers the phone, but you want to be talk to someone who can comment on policy. So now if they agree with us, we say, okay, we were thinking along the right lines. But if they disagree with us, now we got to go back and say, okay, where did we miss this? So calling for a state without having, done footwork first, you can get yourself in trouble there. And if you're just taking verbal guidance, very troublesome. Now I'll skip to a do. If you do call a state, here's what you want to do. You want to ask them if there's any publications or any statute that they can steer you to that will support what they're saying. And very, very important, you don't want to tell someone, hey, I don't believe you. So you can say, hey, that's a great answer. You saved me a lot of work, but my boss is a real stickler and he's going to say, well, where's it in writing? So is there any way you can help me out? Anything you can point me to? Read what they point you to, because a lot of times it contradicts what they told you. So, calling a state is a tool, but just like any tool, you want to use it in the right situations and you want to use it properly. If you use it improperly or in the wrong situation, that tool can do more harm than good. So, verbal guidance from states, not binding, gets more people in trouble than it helps. The other thing that we don't want to do is assume the competition is always right. I use a case study in a lot of the webinars where there's a camera company was leasing camera equipment, like commercial grade camera equipment, into the state of Massachusetts. And Massachusetts audited one of their customers. They found them. They called this company and they said, hey, how long you been doing business in Massachusetts? They said, oh, we've been doing business here forever. They said, okay, we want the last 8 years worth of back taxes plus penalty and interest. And this company said, oh, no, we can't be doing it wrong. Our camera equipment doesn't create nexus. And the state of Massachusetts said, yes, it does. And they said, well, our whole industry does it this way. State of Massachusetts then said, okay, give me the names of all of your competitors and we'll go after them. So this gentleman gave it to them, and the state of Massachusetts called all their competitors. We actually got a call. The way we found out about this is we got a call from one of the competitors. They said, hey, my competitor just turned me in. Is this true? Do I owe tax to Massachusetts? And for this company, it was a good thing because not only did they have exposure in Massachusetts, which we helped them mitigate, but they had the same type of exposure in pretty much every state out there. Owning inventory in a state is a nexus creating activity, or owning tangible personal property in a state is a nexus creating activity. And if you own something that you're leasing, you own property in another state if it's going across the state line. So don't just assume the competition is doing it correctly. A lot of times it's a case of the blind leading the blind. I mean, here in Texas, the people who are doing website design, they're looking at the enumerated services, and website design is not an enumerated service. They stop there. They don't dig deeper. And even a lot of accountants make this same type of mistake. And Texas knows this. So they target specific industries because they know the whole industries are getting things wrong. So you can't just assume the competition is doing it correctly. Can't rely on an article. You don't know who wrote the article. You don't know if things have changed since the article have been written. You don't know if the person who wrote the article truly did understand what was going on. Now, an article can alert you to an issue. It can say, hey, I better do some deeper digging into this, but you want a more authoritative source than an article to base, how you're going to tax items on a going forward basis. So, and some people think, well, a chart was put together by, a company that does sales tax research. And charts are a great place to start. They're going to point you in the right direction. They can give you a lot of information very quickly. However, you don't want to base any final decisions on a chart because sometimes the chart is prepared by the lowest paid worker at the firm or the least knowledgeable worker at the firm. Sometimes they get it wrong. Even from our research sources, we use charts, but we don't make any final decisions there. A lot of times I look at the underlying citations, which is due, by the way. If you're going to use a chart, look at the citations listed in the chart. And sometimes I'm looking at the actual statute that the chart is pointing me towards and where they supposedly got the answers. And it's the direct opposite of what the chart is saying. So again, a chart is a tool. It's a great place to start, but you got to check the citations. Where is the chart pulling its information from? How old is the chart? Things are changing very rapidly. Charts are sometimes outdated on the day that they're actually released because the information they're relying on is older. So as states, they don't wait until January 1st every year and make all their changes. They're changing things throughout the year. So great tool. Just like, all of these things are great tools, but you got to learn how to use it correctly. So no final decisions on charts. It's a place to start. Frequently asked questions page, not authoritative at all. I'll give you an example. Here in Texas, when they passed the marketplace collection statutes, they came out and said that for economic nexus, you don't have to count sales through a marketplace on the frequently asked questions page. However, in the statute, it looked like you did need to collect it. So we were telling our clients, hey, that pointed out this frequently asked questions page. We said, hey, that's not authoritative. The state can make that go away. Just pull it off their website, when, it's not there anymore. You got to look at the statutes. You got to look at the rules. You got to look at the regulations. And in this case, about 3 months after, one of our clients, pointed this out to us, state of Texas went in and they removed it. And now they said, oh yeah, this was wrong. So you can't rely on a frequently asked questions page. It's just not authoritative. Another thing, and I know we do have a lot of accountants who, listen to us on this podcast, but you can't blindly trust your accountant. There are some accountants out there who are very, very good and who do understand sales tax. And then there are a bunch of accountants out there who, everyone's a sales tax expert since, we've got economic nexus. People who have never done sales tax before, all of a sudden are sales tax experts. So it's not hard to say you're a sales tax expert. It is hard to deliver on the services that your clients need. And I'll tell you this, whenever anyone's come to us with a big problem, whether it be an audit or, they're looking at doing a bunch of VDAs because they have a bunch of past exposure, they always say, this is how this conversation starts out. Well, my accountant told me this, or my accountant told me not to worry, or my attorney told me this. So, accountants are trusted advisors. We tend to believe everything they say. So if you are an accountant and you do have a firm grasp of this, great. But if you don't, don't use your clients as guinea pigs. I mean, go out and get the education and become an expert before holding yourself out to an expert, because you don't want to be those ones that your clients are coming to us later on and saying, hey, my accountant screwed me. I mean, because it just doesn't end there. They usually, irate enough that they may have litigation against you or whatever else. So do the work. If you're if you're not an accountant, ask your accountant how they're staying top of all the changes. I mean, accountants have so much to stay on top of just with the normal services they're offering you. Now with Wayfair, you may have a potential to file in all states with a sales tax, 46 plus Washington, D.C., so 47 jurisdictions. And that's like almost a full-time job. So how are they staying on top of everything they need to in order to help you? Maybe they have a SALT department. Maybe they hired someone who is a SALT specialist. SALT stands for state and local taxes. So accountants, again, they can be a great resource, a great tool. But you got to ask the tough questions. That's one of the do's. Ask your accountants how they keep current. We talked about the dues being, do ask the state where to find the documentation, ask your accountant how they're staying current, how many clients they do have that are multi-state clients, how long have they been doing this, and the underlying citations on the chart. So, Ellie, I mean, a little bit long-winded here, but that's my list of do's and don'ts for people who are going out there and actually doing their own research.
Wow, thank you so much, Mike. I think really great advice here. So let's talk about tools. Are there any tools that sellers can use? Are there any tools that sellers can use?
Yeah, absolutely. So believe it or not, Google is probably one of the most cost-effective tools out there. And, it's a great place to start. You can Google some questions or some items, and they'll take you right to the state website, and the answer will be there. Other items, not so much. So if you're going to be doing a lot of research, I suggest you, like us, we subscribe to a number of research sources. So CCH, which is a Wolters Kluwer's company, Bloomberg, which is BNA. You've got Thomson Reuters. You've got TTR, which was just acquired by Avalara in the last week or so. But all of these companies have, excellent, research libraries and tools that make your life a whole lot easier. Now, they're not cheap. They're going to range anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 or more per user. If you don't have a lot of need for sales tax research, then, you might need to stick with a Google. And if you can't find the answers on a Google, reach out to someone like us. But if you have a lot of questions and you're going to be doing a lot of research, one of these sources out there is an excellent source. Now, we've also offer a source out there. Yeah, we call it our Salt Vault. And inside of our Salt Vault, we have quite a number of proprietary charts, lots of other great information. And we share some of the charts from our actual research sources. So all in all, there's close to, I think, 100 different charts in there at this point. And other tools that we make available, special webinars. So the Salt Vault, I read a comment from one of our users the other day. They said it is now their best research tool and they spend all their time in it. So in addition to these other sources, there's my New York accent kicking in again. You've got our Salt Vault.
Thank you so much, Mike. And let's wrap it up here. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, when they think about research, they don't think about services because they just don't think that services are taxable. But every year, more and more states tax more and more services. And as of now, I don't know any state that doesn't tax at least some services. Well, there are some states that don't tax anything, so they're not going to tax it. But other states that actually have a sales tax, services are taxed in each one of them. Some states tax practically all services, while other states just tax some services. So, don't forget about services when you're doing your research. And I spoke to someone this morning and they were telling me, they said, well, Mike, well, what about rush sale? Do we, add-on fees like this? Yeah, in some states, something like that is going to be taxable if you're charging tax on the actual item itself, because, like a rush fee in many states is going to become part of the sales price. So if the sale, it would be taxed as part of the sales price, even though it's separately stated. So very important to look at services and how they're going to be taxable on a state-by-state basis. And don't just stay on the surface. You got to dig deep. A lot of times, when I'm training people to do research internally here, they'll come to me and say, okay, I got the answer. And they bring me something that was either superseded or is just a little bit off our fact pattern, and there's something better out there. A place where a lot of accountants and a lot of companies make mistakes is services. For example, we started talking about website design earlier. In the state of Texas, they have their list of enumerated services. Website design, website hosting is not one of those services. So if you're quickly reading the headlines, if you're reading the statutes, and, Texas says, hey, we only tax enumerated services, which means listed services, ones we're telling you about. And you look at all these services and you don't see website design there, then you go and tell your clients, hey, website design, website hosting, not taxable. However, and this is where the research sources come in, because if you look at the rulings or the publications that the state has put out, the guidance that the state has offered, the court cases, you'll see that for the last 30 years, Texas has considered website design and hosting to be data processing. Now, I don't think of website design and hosting, if I didn't know this, I wouldn't think, oh, that's data processing. But once you start digging deep, that's where you find this out. So you can't just, go with the first answer you see. You got to dig a little bit deeper, see if there's anything that contradicts what you originally found. And you'll save yourself a lot of troubles in the long term if you take this approach. Ellie?
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to thank you for some really great information here, and give everyone a little bit of information on how to reach out to us as well. If you need any solutions or services, we offer a lot of them, and you could reach out to me directly at emoffat@salestaxandmore.com. That's EMOFFAT at salestaxandmore.com, all spelled out. You can also get on our website. We have a lot of resources there as well. That's salestaxandmore.com. And we have a whole series of free webinar that provides CPE credit and free resources as well to go alongside our Salt Vault. So Mike, anything else you want to add in here that I'm missing?
No, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Sales Tax and More podcast, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe and check out all of the resources we have out on the web